how is it that a movie based on facts is such a big problem right now, as opposed to, say, various propaganda? I mean, everyone's allowed to make propaganda movies and show them to the people, but what is the problem with reality?
The movies like Kashmir Files and the one dealing with the disappearing ladies from Kerala, and of course Dhurandhar series, and those projections, in my opinion, were the non-state actors. Overall, from my perspective, is that a person who comes after seeing the movie, he is psychologically and mentally affected with a great amount of repugnance to the law enforcement machinery.
So we think that just as the Kashmir Files or the other such politically oriented movies have been screened without any reservations, this movie also deserves to be seen by the people, not only of Punjab, but the whole of the country. There is a Supreme Court to take care of how to punish the guilty. Now that is a nationalist constitutional argument. I mean, how can you argue with it?
Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on The Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. A movie called Satluj faced 3.5 years of scrutiny by the censor board, got its name changed thrice, eventually released on an OTT platform, ZEE5, only to be taken down from that platform as well. The movie is now being extensively screened. Any prizes for guessing how? Yes, piracy. So if the purpose was to stop the screening of the movie, one question can be why? And the other question is that has it even been successful? What really is the story behind the banning of the screening of the movie Diljit Dosanjh starrer Satluj on the life of human rights activist Jaswant Singh Khalra? I have a very interesting guest today. We have Mr. Karanbir Singh Sidhu, also known as KBS Sidhu. You have read many an article and commentary by Sidhu Sahab. Thank you very much for joining us on The Federal. You were former Special Chief Secretary of Punjab, joining us from Chandigarh. In fact, I would like to tell our audience, he was the Deputy Commissioner of Amritsar between 1992 and 1996. This also included Taran district at that time. And when Jaswant Singh Khalra was abducted from his residence in Amritsar on the 6th of September 1995, he was the one who ordered a magisterial inquiry. Mr. Sidhu, you would be in the best position to comment on this case. And how is it that a movie based on facts is such a big problem right now, as opposed to, say, various propaganda? I mean, everyone's allowed to make propaganda movies and show them to the people, but what is the problem with reality? Mr. Sidhu, I would like to begin by asking you, what, according to you, or how do you see this stopping of this movie?
Firstly, the context is that the movie had been with the censor board and they had proposed as many as 120 plus cuts. And the producers or the directors, they were doing yes, no, no, yes, sometimes going to the Bombay High Court and so on, and then withdrawing the writ petition. The fact of the matter is that they did not abide by either whatever you call advice or the directions of the censor board. And the movie, irrespective of the name changes, Kallu Kara, which means massacre in Punjabi, reminiscent of Ahmad Shah Abdali's massacre of the Sikhs, and or whether you call it, Punjab 95 and eventually Satluj, it one fine day without any pre-advertisement goes online on an OTT platform without those cuts. So effectively, what might have been illegal to be screened in public theaters was then streaming into the homes of people and got unprecedented traction both within India and abroad, and including Punjab and elsewhere. So now the movie mysteriously was taken off in 48 hours and no official version was forthcoming, whether the producer or the director had pulled it off, or whether the platform had taken this decision, or was there any official direction from the government of India or the regulators. In fact, if there has been any official order directing them to pull out, it has not come out in the public domain. We now know that they are trying to review the whole thing, and we may or may not see it again on the OTT platform in the form which the reviewing authority may like to have a final decision on. Now, it's not a secret that Punjab had been through a phase of terrorism in the 80s, pre-Blue Star, then phases of a popular government for a couple of years, and then again an unprecedented spell of president rule from 1987 to 1992, 5 years. And then, of course, the popular government of Jaswant Singh, and it was with a truncated vote, elections held under the shadow of gun, hardly 10-12% voting. So that was the so-called restoration of democracy, as we understand in Punjab. And then in about till 1994 February, roughly, I would say that the insurgency, terrorism, or whatever name you call, had subsided. Now, to put things again in a perspective, these are figures which can be contested, but broadly, these are the home ministry type of figures coming out of parliamentary questions and RTI replies. Within these 2 decades, you had 12,000 innocent civilians, both Hindus and Sikhs, being killed. These include the relatives of the police personnel, and also police officials up to 1,800. The official figure is 1784, which included 2 serving DIGs who in active encounters were killed, SSPs of 2 districts, some former SSP killed in explosion in high security Punjab Armed Police complex in Jalandhar. Mr. Ribeiro himself narrowly escaped an assault. So therefore, it is nobody's recollection, or no narrative can say it was a one-sided kind of a massacre being carried out under the DGP earlier, Mr. J.F. Ribeiro, and thereafter Mr. KPS Gill. And in the process, the terrorists killed in encounters, in absolutely face-to-face firings, or police cordon and search operations, is approximately 8,000. Those are the type of figures. Now, about the protagonist, Mr. Khalra was a reasonably well-known personality. He was a reasonably well-known figure in the district. It is not as if he was, someone of world renown. At the same time, it was not as if, he was a small-time researcher sitting here or an overground person of an underground organization, people like to say. And he was the General Secretary Human Rights of a mainstream party, the Shiromani Akali Dal Badal Group. Now, coming to the instance first, before I come to whether the ban is right or not, on 31st August 1995, you had Mr. Jaswant Singh assassinated in a massive explosion in Chandigarh, in a bomb explosion outside the Civil Secretariat, Chandigarh. He dies within 6 days, and this is under the watch of Mr. KPS Gill, the DGP. In 6 days, exactly on 6th of September 1995. So I have been the Deputy Commissioner or the District Magistrate since 1992 to 1996. And before that, 2 years, I was Additional Deputy Commissioner of Development, which means dealing with the rural areas and panchayats. So I had a fairly extensive experience in dealing with rural areas, panchayats, and communities. And Tarn district, which was then arguably the hotbed of terrorism, was a part and parcel of Revenue District. One had, 3 SSPs, 3 police districts to contend with. Tarn, Amritsar proper, there was no commissionerate system then, and Amritsar rural, also called Majita, and IG border range and DIG border range, and so on. So on that fateful day, because the things were normal, apart from the sudden spurt of the Jaswant Singh assassination, so people come to me as a district magistrate and say, Ji, Khalra Sahab, has been taken away by people. They were in a civil clothes, they looked like police. They didn't tell us from where they've come, and we don't even know, are they actually police or not, and so on. So my immediate first port of call was SSP Amritsar, because from where he'd been abducted was part of Amritsar city and opposite Guru Nanak Dev University. So the SSP Amritsar was clear and categorical that we have neither picked him up and nor is he required by us in any case. And my next port of call, of course, was they were saying he's been taken by Taran police. And my next port of call was to SSP Taran, Mr. Ajit Singh Sandhu, who seems to have been depicted in this movie. And he, of course, was not available. And those were the times of mobile phones. So sending wireless messages and so on. Of course, he reverted back late in the evening to say that, we have neither the person nor is he wanted by us. So in the meantime, those people were actually, getting arrested, and I ordered a magisterial inquiry at the level of additional district magistrate, a senior level, almost equal parts to the DM. And the gentleman went on the spot, recorded statements in a day or two, so that people could not resile from what they said, because that statement is on oath. So in the meantime, Mr. Khalra's petition was already before the Supreme Court of India regarding unidentified bodies being cremated in the municipal corporation run cremation ground next to Durgana Mandir or Sitla Mandir, as it is called. And of course, Punjab and Haryana High Court had dismissed that petition as being vague and too all-embracing. But it landed up in the bench of Justice Kuldeep Singh, who was hearing this petition, and the petitioner was Mr. Khalra himself. So when he disappeared, and I ordered a magisterial inquiry, obviously people didn't think that it would yield much, because you can't convict a person directly on the basis of magisterial inquiry. So telegrams were shot out by his wife, and the SGPC president, Jaswant Singh Khalra, is also said to have separately, mailed or written directly to the Chief Justice of India, who was already hearing the case. And the court was pleased to regard those telegrams as a habeas corpus writ petition. And after getting the replies, which essentially were that the person is neither with us nor are we required in any case, and a short affidavit from us to say that magisterial inquiry is commenced, is underway. What the court said was that this will not suffice. He was a petitioner before us. He was talking about 2,000 plus bodies in Amritsar alone. So he has been taken away. So we order a regular FIR, RC as they call it, regular case of CBI, and let CBI investigate. So CBI investigated that. There were a lot of pressure on the various witnesses. My witness, as before the CBI formally recording the statement, and then subsequently before the special CBI court in Patiala, was essentially, yes, these people appeared before me. I ordered a ministerial inquiry, and to that extent, I was a witness. It is not as if I was a star witness. So where the problem or the debate, I would say, starts is that many people regard this as a binary, and you present a totally, focus on a particular event, and then you extrapolate the whole thing. The unidentified cremations that took place, which is the figure of 2096, the police version or the general understanding is that Mr. Khalra had access to the register which these cremation grounds maintain, and on the basis of which the death certificates eventually are issued. And there were entries from 1980-84 down to this age that this was an unidentified body. So the police version broadly was कि जी encounter हुआ तो रात को थे बंदे मारे गए. No one came to claim. We put the photographs in the Thana, postmortem करवाया, and what else could we do to accept, to cremate them in accordance to the process of law, and that too in a municipal corporation type of this thing. If it were to be a cover-up operation, we could have, disposed of the bodies in river and so on and so forth. And informally, they would also say, Keji, the parents would say, Keji, the boy was on the run for 4 years. He's our son, but, we are not going to identify. Please, you cremate the body and so on. So this is the broad figure. And in case of custodial deaths, where, officially a person had been arrested, there the inquest by an executive magistrate was mandatory. And there were at least 5-6 such high-profile cases where death in police custody had taken place. Of course, sometimes they would allege that, a person was already a heart patient, this and that. So those cases also came.
I heard what you have to say, and this is a fantastic perspective. You've given an overall perspective simply because you have that background. Being a 1984 batch officer, you have seen all of this play in front of your eyes. But the point is, a movie is an amalgamation of, especially that deal with real life events. They enjoy creative liberty, and there is artistic freedom to project something in a manner in which the director or the actor wants projected. And we have seen this happen in the past as well. To accuse a movie of not considering the other side or the other perspective, don't you think will be very rich, knowing very well that there are a number of propaganda movies that can be accused and kept on the same yardstick? They don't consider the other side. For instance, Dhurandhar, it's not like Dhurandhar presented some other perspective. So is it a director's outlook or a movie's outlook to engage in other perspective, or just project what they feel is the message that needs to go out?
All right, I do agree, artistic expression and so on. So I would like to qualify it by a couple of points. First of all, as I said, from the constitutional perspective, I mean, if we have a First Amendment or a Fifth Amendment type of protection in India, we could perhaps go in for this. The question which we need to answer in this movie is that three main characters purportedly portrayed. I mean, of course, there could be disclaimers. They are no longer in this world, so I mean, their version or whatever is not forthcoming. That's a minor issue. The movies like Kashmir Files and the one dealing with the disappearing ladies from Kerala, and of course Dhurandhar series, and those projections, in my opinion, were the non-state actors which were causing tremendous harm and harassment to the local peace-loving populace. What perhaps distinguishes Satluj and this presentation is that it is the security forces which were fighting a war, a proxy war, and Punjab police at the forefront. There was the paramilitary forces, there was the CRPF, there was the BSF, and having served there in Amritsar, one was dealing with the divisional commander, 15 Dev at Amritsar, and the Ferozpur for that side. Army on internal security duties were also there, and of course there were coordination issues and so on. So here, what distinguishes this movie is that the Indian state, and not talking in terms of what complexion of government was there in Delhi or in Punjab, or was the president rule or not, the Indian state as such is projected and presented as being a source of not only harassment but murderous and brutal assault, on basis of a particular religion, and which is then extrapolated to say that this was a genocide of the Sikhs.
But it hasn't worked, has it? It has only promoted piracy. Now you have public and private screenings. This entire movie is available on WhatsApp. Briefly, it was available on YouTube. There is guerrilla screening, which is happening, which is, I've heard this word for the first time. And if the purpose was to not make this reach the masses, I think it has done the exact opposite. The movie is reaching more people, and that too for free. So what precious little has the government achieved by doing something like this?
There I would tend to agree with you. I mean, but for the ban, perhaps the movie may have been watched for 5 days, 6 days, and it could have petered off. So now this is something which the people who took the decision, they need to look into themselves whether this was called for, or whether the intended objectives were achieved, or other absolutely contrary objectives, consequences followed. That's entirely a different thing. But once it was, and also the regulatory framework, I think that needs to be revisited. My understanding is that on OTT you have a kind of a self-certification, and then you stream the thing directly into the homes of the people. So that's another thing one needs to say. But obviously, if the whole objective was people, and large number of people, not to see in public theaters in this uncut, unexpurgated format, that of course has not served the purpose, and that's for the policymakers and the regulators who take this decision to see. But overall, from my perspective, is that a person who comes after seeing the movie, he is psychologically and mentally affected with a great amount of repugnance to the law enforcement machinery. And even I personally have been told and say, "Okay, once you knew he was in police custody, why didn't you take your own contingent of paramilitary force and raid the Chabal police station and so on? Vicariously, what did you do as the district magistrate and so on?" So those questions come. We all operate within the canons of law.
Even now, before banning this film, all that we have heard from the government by way of sources, not officially, is that there are national security concerns. Now, I feel that this is really vague. Now, that is something which you can broad stroke and use against anyone, national security. What is the nature of the national security risk? Please specify.
Sanket, it's not for me to specify, but, to answer the first part of your question, I think there are well-known guidelines of the censor board as to what will pass through and what will not. So any person in India who's making a movie for public exhibition pretty much knows that these are the lines to which I can stretch. Movies like Emergency and others, they have gone through cuts and released and so on and so forth. So when a person makes a movie, creative freedom, he knows that this has to be gone through. And in this case, you also challenged Bombay High Court and then didn't get any relief. You withdrew that. And then, of course, the regulatory gap is there between the censor board and the OTT platform. So they took advantage of that. Now, the government people have, in their wisdom, banned. We don't know the grounds. Now, as far as national security is concerned, it's easy to use. But if I were to stretch, if I were to be defending and sitting as a cog in the wheel in a ministry somewhere at a JS level, 15 years ago, then I would say, the youth of Punjab in border areas, and there is narco-terrorism and there are drones coming, and in the border areas, they are watching in a Gurdwara and they are watching in a theatre in Patti Khemkaran and Dera Baba Nanak and a stone's throw from the barbed wire, and those youth may be, instigated and also by fringe elements from abroad and so on, and they may again take to the arms and it could be armed rebellion. So when you say national security, it's an apprehension and a subjective satisfaction of the person who's passing that final order, like a DM passing an order of 144 कि वो ये दंगा फसाद ना हो जाए, हाँ जी, तो मैं 144 नाफिज कर रहा हूँ. So they can justify, and the courts generally say that we will not put ourselves into the minds and subjective satisfaction. But of course, I think we have not heard the last of it. If it is amicably sorted, well and good, but it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court of India, after it's a question of fundamental rights, and I'm all for Article 19 and all for freedom myself. But as we know, our constitution has put those fetters, and if at all it ignites a wider debate on free speech, artistic expression, I would be the one leaning in favor of generally for more freedom of speech than we already have, irrespective of the decision taken in this particular case or my opinion which I've expressed here.
All right, joining us right now is Mr. Harcharan Bains. Mr. Bains is the principal advisor to President of the Shiromani Akali Dal, Sukhbir Singh Badal, also former advisor on national affairs to the Chief Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Bains, for joining us. This special screening which is happening of the movie Satluj, which is technically not approved by the government, removed from an OTT platform, being widely circulated by way of piracy, is being supported, I believe, by the Shiromani Akali Dal, and special screenings are taking place. May I know, Mr. Bains, why?
The movie is acknowledged to be a complete and honest depiction of the events that happened in the time frame that this movie deals with. That is the late 90s. And there's a strong sensitivity about those events in Punjab. I mean, I understand that is one dimension of the whole problem. But to the best of my knowledge, or as the movie shows, it appears to be quite an honest and truthful depiction of that part of the problem. So we think that just as the Kashmir Files or the other such politically oriented movies have been screened without any reservations, this movie also deserves to be seen by the people, not only of Punjab, but the whole of the country, in order to understand what went on in the name of fight against terrorism in Punjab. So I think people have a right to see this movie. Besides, we didn't see, for 2 years this has been going on. We didn't hear anything from the government banning this movie at that time. Therefore, and even if there's a ban, it will look to be a very illogical ban because the entire movie is based on the contents of the judgment and the proceedings and the observations of the honorable judges in the apex court of this country, the Supreme Court. Therefore, I mean, depicting something which is already on record in the Supreme Court judgment, banning it makes no sense at all.
Harcharan ji, you briefly mentioned about other movies being allowed. Are you suggesting that there are different yardsticks being followed for different, should I say, exercises in creativity? For instance, you would have full support should there be a Dhurandhar or a Kashmir Files or a Kerala Files. However, a movie which depicts a real life event which happened in the 90s is a no-go, and that too on grounds of national security. So do you sense some sort of double standards in dealing with movies?
I indeed do, Sanket, and I go even further, that this is a violation of the constitutional processes. You see, as I said before, the movie merely documents on celluloid what is already contained in the files of in the judgment of the Supreme Court. So the country has no problem with that judgment. That is the judgment of the apex court. Therefore, I mean, putting that on celluloid, either you say the judgment was wrong, and the judgment needs to be challenged, which is not the case. Therefore, putting on record something which is acknowledged to be true by the highest court of this country, and then allowing movies with much less authentic and credible versions of events like the Kashmir Files or Dhurandhar, I mean, a rank, what shall I say, a third-class depiction of imagined events. If that can be allowed, I think there's a strong case for at least honoring the judgment of the Supreme Court on which this movie is based. Yeah, there are different. There's a strong feeling in Punjab, and it has been there for quite a long time, that there need to be uniform standards and uniform yardsticks in all these creative and artistic ventures or the screening of them.
Fair enough. So on the part of the government, we have not heard anything officially as to why this was taken down on ZEE5. Of course, the censor board never approved it, despite the fact that they wanted 127 cuts. The name was changed thrice, and the movie was taken down from the OTT platform. The reason unofficially being given is national security concerns. Now, we do not know what exactly those concerns are, and a section of the polity seems to suggest that this is politics. However, I just flip the argument around. With the Shiromani Akali Dal holding special screenings in Punjab for this movie, unreleased movie, will this not qualify as politics, particularly if it is coming so close to the elections in Punjab?
No, if there's any politics, it's in the banning of it, and the Shiromani Akali Dal's reaction to that unconstitutional, or let us say questionable decision to not allow its screening, that is a core issue, in fact. Why should it not be allowed? I mean, if it were only an imagined or a political narrative being screened, only based on the versions of this of A or B political party, then probably I could understand. But this is based precisely on the contents of a judgment of the Supreme Court. I mean, you cannot say that the judgment of the Supreme Court is anti-national. I mean, it beats all logic. And that judgment, is on record. It's publicly available, and it was widely publicized as a victory of justice. And this is being quoted by us as an example that justice can be delivered in the country. So, a judgment and a film based on that, which actually promotes the narrative that if there is a violation of the constitution in this country, there is a Supreme Court to take care of how to punish the guilty. Now that is a nationalist constitutional argument. I mean, how can you argue with it? How can you actually question that? The existence of the movie is a proof, that justice can be, we can expect justice in the system. Because that's what the movie is about. It shows in the end that the guilty are punished. Unlike Dhurandhar, which is totally unconstitutional and unconstitutional events and things which are not even close to reality. If that can go, and if Kashmir Files, which again is not based on any constitutional authority or any judgment of any court, if that can go, then this one has the strongest case in the interest of national unity and integrity, in the interest of constitutional values, to be screened. In fact, the government should promote it, and the government should have announced a tax cut on this, because this actually promotes the cause. That if somebody violates the law in this country, there is justice to be delivered, and there is a court that will deliver it. So that, in fact, is the strongest argument in favor of national unity and integrity and constitutional values. So I don't see why anyone should oppose it.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you.